Welcome back. We're back. We're back.
We back, baby. Let's go.
Sounds like a game show.
Let's go. It's episode 23 of Ad Talk. We are back. And, you know, Matthew pointed out earlier that if you make it 20 episodes in recording a podcast, you've made it. Like that's the hardest thing to do. So we made it 20 episodes and then we quit. But we're back now. So there's something about that.
We didn't quit. It's a nice little pause. It's a nice nice pause.
We took a good year off with 1 or 2 episodes in that year. But we're back. It's 2025, and so it's the year of the podcast. That's what we're saying. So we're starting fresh.
That's what the lunar calendar tells me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I thought it was the Chinese New Year of the podcast.
Yep. They invented a couple new.
No, I'm pretty sure it's the year of
ones,
the snake, actually.
Oh, is it?
And Dragon are out. Podcast and TikTok are in. So
there's a snake in my podcast. That's the new name.
There's a snake in my podcast.
But welcome back. We're here with Matthew. Matthew, what's up, dude?
what's up? Good to be back.
Good to
Not that
be
we didn't actually go anywhere. We were just super busy. So
we still
good to
indeed
be
work
here.
together every day. Yeah. So we've been here.
That's right.
But the pod is back. We're here with Caleb. What's up, Caleb?
Howdy. Feels good to be back. Stoked to be here with you guys again. I missed it. So,
yeah, dude, because there's a lot to talk about. I feel like we had an episode maybe a year or 2 ago about AI, and we've talked a lot about AI, but things are moving fast.
It would be really fun. It would be really fun, I feel like, to look back at the things that we said about AI a year ago and just see how
wrong we were.
Yeah, either how wrong we were or maybe anything that actually happened that we thought might happen. But it would be fun to just kind of think that and just be like, that was so dumb. Why did we think that?
Maybe you could pull up the show notes, Matthew, see if we had any stupid takes. I'm sure we did. I typically, every other take of mine is pretty stupid. So if you're listening to this, you got a 50-50 shot on what I'm saying being accurate. But we are talking about AI today. And in really, what's crazy is we've started using AI pretty much on the regular for most of the work we do. But what I find kind of interesting is that when people say that, you automatically go to a certain place in your brain. You make an assumption about how using AI looks. And what I think is pretty interesting is probably the ways we use it at AdClass. Because it's not like we're going in there hey, write us copy or write us scripts. We don't generally do anything like that, but we use it in other ways. And so today's episode, we really want to focus on where is AI at right now? Where is it going? How does it affect marketing work in general, what we're doing? And what unique advantages can it bring to a marketing agency or a marketing team? But then also, what shouldn't you use it for? At least at this point, because I think there's a lot of people that use it just wrong. So,
all right, I've got some fun context here.
Matthew,
March 1st, 2023. And the big things that we had a takeaway on was Fathom. And then we had a competition to see who could identify copy written by me or AI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we were probably using Jasper at that time.
We were using Jasper. ChatGPT wasn't really in the mix really at that point.
Right.
After that was what the heck is going on at Twitter when Elon bought it. So
holy cow.
We're in a brand new world right now. So I think, considering what the past 2 years have looked like, especially from an AI perspective, this is going to be a huge upheaval in terms of what we talked about last time.
It's a year ago, and I feel like us talking
that was 2 years ago.
Okay, so 2 years ago, and it feels like what our topics were being Fathom and copy feels like an elementary class on AI compared to what's happened in the past 2 years now. It's if I could go back and just be like, dude, just wait 2 years. It's just.
And I had people that were I learned so much. I use Fathom now. This is great. This is so informative. And now looking back, it's not even the tip of the iceberg. This is 30,000 feet looking down at the iceberg from a window on a plane. It's crazy.
Dude, and what's even crazier, I saw somebody say that we are in the dial-up internet stage of AI. And I thought we were in the dial-up internet stage of AI then, 2 years ago. It's like, no, we're sort of like in the LAN party phase of AI, like where your buddies bring over an Xbox and you're in the other room and you have it like just hardwired in. That's sort of what we're doing.
Everyone's playing Halo 2.
Yeah, you've
LAN
made like
parties.
a custom map on Halo 2 and you're like just swords and snipers only, like that's the stage we're in right now of AI, and we're not even connected to the internet, and so it's crazy. Yeah, to hear 2 years ago, like Fathom was a big takeaway. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about Fathom today because one of the things we're doing at AdClass is utilizing Fathom in a big way with AI still. But yeah, that's hilarious, Matthew. A lot can change in 2 years for sure. And it's just like, if this is the dial-up internet stage, you guys remember trying to like watch a video on dial-up internet? I don't know if you're old enough to remember that. It'd be like we had the basement computer, and I remember the day we went from dial-up to like high-speed satellite internet. I came home from school and my dad's like, come here, check this out. And he goes and he plays like, I think it was like Kelly Clarkson, A Moment Like This, on some video streaming. So it wasn't even YouTube. It was just like somewhere that you could find a video. And we waited like 3 minutes for it to buffer. And then we watched it and we were like, what? Because up to that point, it couldn't do anything like that. And now here we are recording, 4K content on streaming on the internet. And that's where we're at with AI, man. Is like, we can't even load a video yet.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy.
Anyways, all right, cool. We're gonna hop into it. So, really, today what we're exploring though is like this idea that AI is advancing quickly, but it's still AI. And what I mean by that is like when you see an ad or you see some content that's made by AI, a discerning person can still tell. I'm not talking about the boomers on Facebook who are like, whoa, is that a giant statue made out of mozzarella cheese the size of Mount Everest? That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I don't know if you guys have seen those.
Wonder posts. Of the world. Hello.
Crazy. And they believe
They're sending it to their grandkids like, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's happening.
Yeah. So I'm not talking about that because, I mean, most people can tell that's AI, although, hey, there's a good percentage of the world that can't. But what we're talking about is the fact that if you over rely on AI and non-human driven content, you're kind of like doing yourself a disservice in your marketing, right? You're eroding trust. And so that's kind of the premise today. Anything else before we hop into it, boys?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Let's go. Kick us off, Matthew.
All right. So I think looking back at like what we've done in the past with AI, and obviously as a team we've grown, which is a huge part of it. We've needed to understand how we can do like task execution using AI to like speed up processes. And then also thinking about on the creative side, obviously, like you were saying, like, we've used it for copy in the past. And now, we're starting to like explore video graphic, that side of things. But I think one of the big things that we've not really touched on really is automation and just how much processing power stuff like ChatGPT, stuff like DeepSeek now is able to do and generate in such a short amount of time. So I think it'd be good to start there in terms of like automation. So, A/B testing, ad variations, reporting. I want to touch on the brain and, how we're using Fathom right now, and Notion as well to sort of have like a information supercenter, if you will. But I think that it's kind of like when you have a new technology, you do the most like basic things with it just to test it out. And I'm trying to think of like a good example. Like when I got my first iPhone, for example, what's the first thing I did? I loaded up Doodle Jump,
I was gonna ask if it was the like the beer glass or like milk glass app where you're like, check this out, and you tip it over and it looks like you're drinking out of a cup.
Exactly. Like you've got this incredible new technology and you just want to make this like alien jump on platforms by touching it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're kind of at in a similar sense, like, a couple of years ago, like just like scratching the surface in these really rudimentary ways. So
Right.
I think that when we were actually really thinking about what the power that AI has brought to not just AdClass, but just like marketing in general, it is down to that data side of things. It's down to that automation and repetitive task side. So I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, it's efficiency more than anything, right? It's like what used to take you a few hours, AI can knock out really quickly. I think you're right. That is a really good place to start. Here's one that I do almost on the daily, which I don't know if anyone else on the team honestly does this. We haven't SOP'd this out, but we deal with a lot of data, right? We look at we track things in what we call PPC sheets. So every single day, all the ad spend, all of the leads that were generated, all the calls, the sales, the ROAS, right, the cost per acquisition, all that stuff gets tracked daily and thrown into a PPC sheet. And so a lot of times, I want to know. I want to basically be able to just glance at that sheet and understand what's going on. So what I'll do is I'll download a client's sheet, a CSV, essentially. I'll upload it to ChatGPT and say, what are the outliers? Literally just as simple as that. And it will tell me, oh, on February the 1st, the cost per call was extra high. And also the CPMs were high. And then that gives me a starting point for what I'm looking for in terms of, irregularities in the ad account. And so anything data related, like data analysis, it's a really powerful tool. Likewise for reformatting CSVs or reformatting spreadsheets so that I can feed them to things, it does that so fast. Like for example, if I have a spreadsheet of customer data, right, that I want to feed to Meta for an audience, I can basically give it Meta's guidelines, give it the spreadsheet, and have it reformat it for me and then upload it, right? That's something before that would probably take me like 30 minutes because I'm trying to figure out where all the things are wrong and fix that and fix this. And it's like, oh, and then if I try to upload it to Meta and Meta gives me an error for whatever reason, I just feed that error back into ChatGPT and it fixes it for me, right? These are little things that like I feel people aren't doing very regularly, but that are saving me personally hours in a week, right? And to your point, Matthew, it's like it's not necessarily like, hey, write me this piece of copy, although we can talk about how we do that as well. It's more so like, hey, save me time by doing this executive task that before I would have had to do, and now I don't have to.
It's the concept of taking point A and point B and folding it and making those 2 points together, closer together. So you've got less of a distance to work and you've got less.
Like Inception, like time travel.
Yeah, I think it's actually Interstellar, maybe. I'm not saying that we're creating like wormholes when we load up a prompt into ChatGPT or anything like that. But
yeah,
I think that just what it's really powerful at doing is closing that gap in terms of like time in, time out, and effort in, effort out. Not saying that we don't have to put in effort because, what you guys have built here is, it's taken a lot of time, takes iterations. I feel like that's, how there's like the Oxford Dictionary word of the year kind of stuff. I feel like iteration is going to be like 2025's. I'll put $5 on that. So
I agree.
But just the way that it can shrink the talent side of things as well. So obviously we'll talk about copy, we'll talk about creative generation. One thing that's been huge is, and now that ChatGPT have just launched this new model as well, code. Like I'm not a coder. I don't read HTML. I can barely read English, And so the coding, just like all of a sudden what became this multiple, even day project of like, well, this embed isn't working. What's wrong? We need to go to a developer or someone that reads HTML and then sort of like try that, see if it works. All of a sudden, now we've got a model which can look at the HTML code, analyze what's wrong with it based on your prompt, and then create a new code, which you can then go and embed immediately. It works.
Test. Right.
That's so cool.
And even if you just like one step from scratch, you just say, make me an embed code of this, make me an HTML that does this like operation on a button click on this page. It does it. And it's that shrinking of effort to outcome is huge.
Yeah, it's super important for a few different reasons, because what does that actually mean, right? Like people are like, okay, cool, you can do like the code thing, but now like what would have required Matthew to go online and probably hire a contract for, or like saying, hey, Caleb, Dakota, maybe we need to make a developer hire, or we need to look
Yep.
into an extra person to do this. That doesn't have to happen anymore. So now what Matthew's been able to do is say, hey, we can just get that code piece done without that, right? I can just use
Yep.
AI and do that. And that's what's happening more and more. And so I think as we're talking about, okay, efficiency and we're saving our time and stuff, it's like, cool. But what does that really mean is happening? It means that we're able to do way more now with less people. Okay. And that's becoming important, because I think this whole topic, I mean, 2 years ago, the whole like scare tactic was, is AI gonna take everybody's jobs, right? And it was like one of those things where it's like, oh, it's coming, it's coming. This year, I mean, like, I think this year is probably the year that, yeah, it's here. It's gonna start happening. And we are actively right now at our agency. And I mean, if we're doing it, it's happening all over the place. There's places where it's like, we don't have to pay for that thing anymore, because now it can be done with the AI. And it's not saying, hey, that skill set is now obsolete. What it's saying, and Dakota, I think you've been the one that's really preached this really well at our company, is that you're not going to be obsolete if you can adapt the AI tools into your skill set, right?
Because 100%.
Yeah.
That's what Matthew just did when he described that, right? So when I posted this on TikTok, I said, hey, your job's at risk. If you think that I'm lying to you, that's fine, but you're going to wake up in 2 years or a year or 6 months and you're going to be in trouble. The comments were all like, okay, what should I do? What Matthew just described is what you should do, right? It's like, he's a marketer who does not know programming, who needed a programming task done. And instead of telling his boss, I don't know programming, you need to hire someone to do programming, he went into ChatGPT and had it do the programming for him. In other words, he problem solved with a tool called AI and was able to do more than he could have done prior because of that tool. That is what you need to be doing, right? To like fill this gap.
Exactly. And I think that one of the big areas that you see a lot of people talking about, like on X and like, industry experts that are talking about what is AI really changing right now. One of the biggest areas people are talking about is creative, between like graphic design, video editing, that whole world, right? Because there's so many tools out there now that are helping with this. And I think a lot of graphic designers and video editors are living in this place of like, well, is my skill set obsolete? Am I not going to be needed anymore? And I think that's the wrong mindset. The right mindset is, how can I take my existing skill set, combine that with these new tools so that I am more efficient and can compete and stay up to date in the marketplace? If you're against AI and you're saying this thing's going to take our jobs and I'm going to be obsolete because of this thing, that's like the process of becoming obsolete.
It's a
like,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. So that's the big thing, guys, is like, if you're listening to this and you are like someone who like operates from like, maybe the job that you have is knowledge-based work, or you do like a service that is a skill-based service. Yeah. It's not, hey, like AI is going to take my job. It's, hey, how can I make sure I'm up to date on these AI tools? So when my clients or when my company is asking me for things, I can be the person that's recommending the cutting edge solutions and using AI to be that more efficient person, right? Because if you're that person, you get to keep the job. Right. You get to keep the job. And if you don't, then there's going to be somebody else who comes along and they're like, hey, I can do 10 times more than that other person because I know how to use this tool. Right. Exactly. And that's going to be the difference. So anyways. Yeah.
And I think what you're describing to it, people are like, oh, you must just love AI and love disrupt. It's like, no, but we're realists, right? You see what's happening. And if you're a business owner right now, seeing what's happening and you're not making active moves to embrace what's happening, like you will be left behind. That's the problem. And I'm not talking about if you're a restaurant owner or something like that, but if you operate in knowledge work, meaning like, all you really do is leverage the stuff that you know in your brain to produce value for a company, that is going to get replaced. Like the stuff that's in your brain, AI is going to know that if it doesn't already very soon. So now you have to understand, how can I actually use my own human intuition skill set that I might have that a robot doesn't have to drive this thing, right? How do you get in the driver's seat and instead of being just at the whim of technology, essentially?
Yep. I also want to touch on one thing that you just mentioned there too, Dakota, because I think that a lot of people might be hearing that and saying like, oh, you guys are like just the AI lovers piece, right? And like, especially the people who are artists and creatives out there, and they're just like, how can you just like go after this AI thing, right? And I think that there is a place for that artistry. Like, let me give an example here. Like, if I'm gonna go out and buy a painting for my dining room, I'm not going to want AI to have painted that. Me personally, I want like an artist that has put their heart and soul into it, because there's a little bit of a meaning behind all of that, right? Not a little bit, a huge meaning behind that.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
and so there's going to be those pieces that's like that human element is going to be needed in those areas. But then there's also elements of like, I need 40 ad creatives due on Thursday, right? You know what I mean? And so it's like, we've got to like be able to figure out how do we combine the two worlds. And so don't hear us say like, hey, artistry and creativity is just going out the window. It's just like, how do we become more efficient with it? But there's still obviously a very much needed place for that. And I love art, you know what I mean? I love music. I love seeing good paintings. And so, I just don't want people to hear that the wrong way. So,
Well, I think that leads us kind of to the next topic, right, Matthew, which is like the trust recession, right? It's like in a world of AI, like let's just assume that AI can do everything a human can do, right? Because that's essentially what it's going to come to. There's still something unique about humanity, and maybe it's because I'm reading The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, but there's something in my mind that's like keeps pulling me back to like, what is it to create something? Right. And there's a trust factor that's built when you create a piece of art and somebody else sees that piece of art. And I'm not talking about a painting or a piece of, a song or whatever. That is art. But like everything a human does uniquely in their own little thing is art. It's like, it's their way of being. Right. If I go sit in my front yard and touch grass for 30 minutes and just look at the trees, I'm doing something there that a robot or AI could never do, right? And so there is still this piece of humanity. And I think what people are afraid of is like, does our humanity get lost in this like, just like gobbledygook of AI generated blech, right? It's almost like you kind of just feel like there's too much information out there that's getting just spewed, right? And I know SEO is another piece of this, where it's like, Google blogs and SEO are getting ruined by just fake AI articles, and it's like you can't even find the information you want anymore because of like the spewing of just fake created stuff, right? And that's what people are afraid of, and it's, I think, for good reason. So what do you guys think happens to marketing and just like even trust on the internet because of this? Is kind of the next phase.
I think it really empowers the value of real creativity, but not just like in a sense of like someone sitting down on Illustrator and creating a graphic, but the ability to define creativity in a way that is authentic. And I think, we've run a lot of creative at AdClass, like millions of dollars have been spent across, AI generated stuff and also, human generated stuff. And what is always going to be performing best is the creative that we collectively agree on that will succeed. And that takes our intuition of like analyzing creative, recognizing some patterns, but also, taking an objective look at it and being like, are people going to respond to this? And, there's been AI creatives where that has been the case and a lot that haven't, honestly. Go for it.
I almost think of like cult classic movies, Matthew. Like maybe you can comment on this. Sometimes you can't think of, and by the way, I say that because Matthew has seen every movie ever. Sorry, Matthew. Am I offending you by calling them movies?
Actually, talkies.
Okay.
I don't even say film.
Film? You don't even say film. Okay, you're one step past that. What did you call it? Talkie?
Moving pictures?
Moving pictures is when they generated the first animations and silent films. Talkies is what we actually have now. So
talkies. Talkies?
You can talkies, TikTokies.
Talkies? Okay. Well, in certain...
I like Takis. They're really spicy.
Oh, hot Cheetos and Takis, baby. Okay.
There we go.
Oh, by the way, Matthew tried his first hot Cheeto at the AdClass company retreat this week. Or last week. What did you think of it?
I liked it. There was the other one that wasn't good. What was like the hot... I don't know what it was. Like there was a Taki, there was a hot Cheeto, flaming hot Cheeto, and then it was flaming hot Funyuns.
Oh, well, Funyuns suck. So yeah.
Absolutely terrible decision. So, but
yeah.
Continue.
As a side note, like one time I was sitting by a very like I would say Midwesterner woman on a flight. She was like 60, and when the snack cart came by, they're like, "You guys need anything down here?" And she goes, "Can I get a Funyun?" And so now every time I hear about Funyuns, that's all I can think of, and it's a great memory of mine.
I'm pretty sure she was talking about her bunions.
That's what I like. You cannot unhear Bunyan and Funyun once you connect those two. So appetizing. Now, Matthew, on the film side, this is what I was kind of thinking. First of all, could AI create a Funyun? Probably not. Secondly,
I think human creativity in the fun.
Human creativity, bro. Sometimes it's our worst enemy. Sometimes it's our best friend. Movies like Napoleon Dynamite, right? Or like just some like weird off the wall stuff like that. Or even the app Vine, right? If you guys remember Vines that made it big, right? Or if you open TikTok and it's like, oh my goodness, how did this person think of this thing? That is still this like human piece of like, whether it's just the weird way we think or whatever, that I think is going to be hard to replicate. And so to your point, it's like our vision of an ad creative, or our vision of a script, or our vision of, you know, anything creative that we produce at our ad agency is the starting point. Now, if we can take that starting point and make the production of that thing more efficient and do it in a way that feels good and produces high quality stuff, like, yeah, we're going to use AI to do that because it's just more efficient for our business. Do I think that like an artist should replace their learning of guitar with being able to prompt a thing to play guitar for them? No, I don't. Like, I think that's bad personally. I think it's like not a good replacement of human art, but
Dude,
we have to find this thing. We have to find the Venn diagram of what's okay. You know what I mean?
I'm just picturing like someone sitting in their computer chair with a guitar in their hands, but like the music's coming out of the computer from a prompt that they typed, and they're just holding it like,
they're just holding it, dude.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
So good.
Is this what guitar playing is going to be in 100 years, dude? It's going to be just like, hey, computer, make it feel like I'm playing this. Honestly, that's probably going to be it. That's sad.
I think that you know, when we think about creatives, and no one's like trying to take people's jobs. It's trying to level up jobs. You know, it's like the really interesting thing is the episode from 2 years ago was, is AI going to take my job in 5 years' time? We're here now, and it's almost like, is AI going to take my job in 5 months' time? And the answer is kind of a yes if you don't adapt. And that it's not like we're saying like everyone's job's going to be replaced, no one's going to be making any money. It's like there has been so many times throughout human history where there has been some new creation, some new invention, which changes the process of whether it's, you know, building a car, you know, with like automated factories and that kind of stuff, or, you know, something as rudimentary as painting. My wife's a fine artist. You know, there's one of her paintings is over Dakota's shoulder right there, you know? So I'm very much an advocate, and Caleb's got a couple too. So, well, thank you for supporting local artists. First, so
she's the best. Go buy her painting.
That was a nice little shout out. I'm not advocating for anyone to like lose their job, but I am advocating for people where there is potential for a change in their industry or their process to learn what it takes to up level and create new value with that skill. So, you know, for a graphic designer, it could be, you know, using AI to generate creative ideas, and then taking that intrinsic like soul. I know, you know, you guys, I'm the corniest person alive, and we asked ChatGPT to roast us based on our enneagrams at one point, and the one thing that it said for me was like, yeah, but where's the soul in this kind of stuff? So it's really appealing to me. But we have still this intrinsic ability to create, and this like innateness in us, which can be something that AI can never be. And that's like our personhood, our individuality, our lived experience. Like Napoleon Dynamite was written because some weirdo had some fun idea. You know, we've asked AI to like write jokes, and they're terrible. They're probably better than my jokes, but you know, they're not great. There is still this need for human interaction. So it's kind of a adapt or die situation. 100%.
100%. And so to me, it's like, okay, if AI is still AI and we can still pinpoint it, are people making a mistake leaning too heavily on AI right now like in their marketing as an example, right? Like, have you guys seen that at all? Because I definitely have as I'm scrolling like Facebook
For
and Instagram.
sure. Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, like as it relates to the whole trust recession thing, right? It's like if all of your creative feels like AI generated and your copy feels AI generated and everything in your landing page feels like it was written by a robot, right? Like it's gonna eventually hit your marketplace or your target market, and they're gonna say, this person's not real, this person's not authentic, I don't connect with this, I don't feel like it's like, it's relatable to me. And so I think that, like, going back to the question of like, okay, well, if we are in this trust recession, like what should marketers and influencers be doing, and what should businesses be doing? It's how can you connect with them on a human level. So I think things like live webinars, things like virtual events where people can see you actively, like communicating with your audience and answering questions, things like the return of in-person events, right? I mean, like we saw COVID kind of crush that industry, but I think AI is very highly likely going to make that come back in a really big way because people want to see humans, right? And so it's like, so to your point, Dakota, of like, have we seen that stuff on the front in a bad way? Yeah, we definitely have. And I think if your whole marketing strategy is just put a bunch of AI stuff on the front because it's super fast and it's super easy, that's bad and that's not going to work. But if it's, hey, let's put our humanness in the front and use AI as efficiency in the back, that's the working equation. So
yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. It's funny because like if once you've used ChatGPT a lot or you've used any of these tools a lot, you start to understand how it writes. And then when you're scanning just content online, it's like, okay, there's another use of the like, it's not just, it's blank. And it's like, okay, that's ChatGPT, you know what I mean? And you start to see how lazy people actually are with this content creation. And I think that is the piece where it's like, okay, you can tell. Maybe not everybody, but I think a lot of people can tell. And it breaks trust.
Exactly. I think to the brand loyalty point, there's like a couple interesting case points which are kind of adjacent to what we do, but not necessarily directly. Just this Christmas, Coca-Cola ran an AI ad, which was like brazenly AI. I think they might even like have put it in like a footnote at the bottom in a chyron saying like generated by AI. And there was like a huge backlash to that.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
And it wasn't good. Exactly. Yeah. There's another one, which is, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to talkies, which is a movie that just came out called The Brutalist.
I saw that. I saw that. Was it like the soundtrack or something they used AI?
So there is a couple, it's about a Hungarian architect. And there is a couple instances of AI used when they're speaking Hungarian, like Adrian Brody is speaking Hungarian, and they used AI to modify his Hungarian dialect to make it sound more authentic outside of what he could do. And there was also some like AI generated images on a blueprint on a chalkboard pinned up with like for like 3 seconds. And there was this huge backlash to it because it's like, well, you're a movie, you should be like talking about human creativity. This is about an architect, which is all about like taking an idea out of your mind and building something meaningful with it. There is this idea of, AI being this immediate trust eroder, which can be a real double-edged sword. So,
now the question is, if they never told anybody that they did that, would anyone have ever known? Right.
Exactly. I mean, I think the Coca-Cola one, we would have known because
but I mean, like the
dialogue. Polar Bear had like 6 eyes. I don't think they do. So,
because to me, there's a fine line, man. Because it's like, okay, then when is it okay to use CGI in a movie? Right. Like, oh, that's not his real face. Like, no, that's not his real face. They CGI, you know what I mean? And like, we're fine with that, but we're not fine if AI is the thing that creates the CGI. I don't know.
We're just trying to like understand what the nuances of what is allowable from like a creative perspective. And I think that is what allows us to use the, like Caleb was saying, human forward and then AI process backward. That's what I think the real big move is going to be.
Yeah. Agreed. I think, because I'm trying to think of other examples here too that like were big ones. Like I remember, I think that this was The Mandalorian that did this, but like one of the big ones I remember was like they brought back Luke Skywalker as like a younger Luke Skywalker, and they did his face with CGI or whatever. And I feel like that kind of use case is kind of cool, because you're like, it's impossible to bring back the real young, young like Luke Skywalker here, right? So it's kind of like AI has a chance to do something that wouldn't be possible or whatever. But I think maybe where people get frustrated is if it's like, that could have been done with like a normal real actor, and now you're just replacing like the art of the human acting with this like fake thing that like isn't real to me. You know what I mean? I think so. It's finding like what's that line and like where does it make sense. But like I personally thought it was cool when it was like, cool, we got to like recreate his face, and like you can't just make somebody young again. So like that's fine with me. That's kind of cool that we got to see Luke Skywalker make another appearance in a weird way. So
exactly.
I don't know. That's my take on it, at least.
Dude, I like it. Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. This is a nuanced issue that, again, and we're going to look back on in another 2 years and be like, you can't even tell now. You know what I mean? Like it all just looks like content now. And so what I think is somewhat interesting is, okay, if we do fast forward and we think about a world in which AI can do anything we can do, even from a creative standpoint, because let's face it, there is, I mean, it's going to be able to think pretty creatively, right? I think that like there's still this human touch in relationships, especially, that we're trying to emphasize at AdClass, right? Because when we think about it, Caleb, it's like, yes, we can be more efficient. Potentially a team of 20 can do what a team of 1,000 used to do, in 5 years, which makes us more efficient, makes better bang for your buck when you hire a marketing agency, because now you're hiring an agency that understands how AI works, can prompt it correctly, can take all of the context from every bit of work they've done, plug in those successful things to your business, right? Like all of this comes in the package with working with an AI-driven agency. But what they don't want is a robot to talk to. You know what I mean? They want to get on a call with a real human who deeply cares, who understands what's going on, can drive the AI machine, and also empathize and see your business goals and help you achieve them. And I think that piece, I mean, like, we're biased. One of our core values is love on people. It's like, we're pretty biased on this, but I think that piece is what differentiates a human-driven AI first agency versus let's just make everything more efficient, right? Because that human piece is so important for relationship building, especially, right?
Yeah.
Could you imagine an AI trying to close a client?
They're doing it, bro.
I mean, dude, they are doing that. That's a thing. Yeah.
They're doing it.
Their sales teams are doing it.
I'm gonna put a timestamp to erase that. 39.
I think it's good.
I mean, yeah, I think it's good too. It's honestly like it's something that a lot of people probably don't know, that like there are whole AI sales companies that are like working on doing phone calls and like handling the prospecting phase and answering questions. That's like a whole thing. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, honestly. And
the voice, I mean, like we know 11 Labs does insanely good voice recreation. They now have a live version of that you can plug in. And so imagine in a world, I mean, like, have you talked to ChatGPT before on the app? It feels human.
I haven't, no.
Yeah, it's scary when you do it. It feels human. And so essentially there's tech now where you can feed your voice to that system, essentially, and have you talking to someone on the other end, which leads us down a whole other rabbit hole of issues, right? For example, your older relatives in your life feeding $10,000 to a Bitcoin machine because it sounds like you called them and told them something bad was happening. You know what I mean? A lot of issues.
Dude, so many. And I think that's the other concern, that like, I think the majority of the population that aren't following it the way that we do, right? That just kind of hear about AI in the back, like, oh yeah, that's just another thing that's out there right now. Like, I think their opinion is like, it's going to steal my face and it's going to steal my voice and it's going to like call it. And I think that those are some actually pretty, those are some valid concerns, right? And I think then that
CIA been doing that since the 70s. Get free. Sorry.
And somebody's on a Bob Dylan kick.
And so it's like, then the question becomes, well, how do you regulate it? And how do you stop someone from using it that way? Because you're right. Because I mean, what's stopping a criminal from like, pretending to have kidnapped a family member and using their voice in a panicked way and calling someone for a ransom or something, right? Like those are
happening for sure. Yeah.
Scary things. And it's like, so yeah. And I don't think we all have the answer or solution to all of this, because it's the same problem of like, okay, when the internet was created, how do you stop the dark web from happening? How do you stop criminals from using the internet? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
We all have to kind of figure this out as we go. But I mean, the
Yeah.
reality is it's not stopping. So if your
Yeah.
opinion is like, there's just going to be a magic wand that gets waved and AI is no more, like that's not happening. At least,
No.
you know what I mean? Like it's just not
No,
happening.
in fact, it's the opposite, right? Like if you think like politically speaking, what's going on now with like Elon kind of in the government, right? Literally just like he has access to just the entire government now. There are theories around basically saying like, is he just feeding all this to his AI so the AI can just do our government stuff now, right? I mean, like this is not going anywhere, right?
No.
The government is starting to use it. The
Countries are
superpowers of the
investing.
world, yes.
That countries are investing into the infrastructure of AI. Like everyone is
Yeah.
basically like, we need to like not fall behind here. Let's build these massive buildings
it's an
to
arms
house
race.
all these servers. It's a race, and it's like, yeah. So if your theory is like, well, you know, I'm just gonna kind of hope that it goes away, like it's not going away. That's like thinking, oh, like I hope the internet just kind of stops happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's gonna happen, and it's gonna become smarter, and it's not going away. So, anyways, all circling back to the point of like, learn how to use it. You know what I mean? Learn how to use it for good. Yeah. So
Well, let's zoom in a little bit more then, because that part was very like 30,000 foot, like semi-existential thinking about what AI is doing.
Mhm.
Let's zoom in and think about what we're doing, like what ways that we have like directly integrated AI into our processes on a daily basis that have helped us and helped us serve our clients better.
Mhm.
And then let's think through some suggestions, some advice and tips for others that are listening to this, ways that they can, you know, either emulate what we're doing, think through, you know, in their own marketing niche or whatever service they're providing, how can they use AI today, tomorrow, next month to not just like make things quicker or easier, but better.
Right.
Yeah.
The way that Caleb worked really hard on something last week that I think we should share, which is like a Slack channel that we have called The Brain. But before we share like that specific process, I think the way that I'm thinking about AI now might be helpful, which is imagine you have every book you've ever read, every video you've ever watched, every piece of content you've ever created, ad copy you've ever written, graphic, every client you've ever worked with, their good months, their bad months, all of the stats that feed that machine, what types of funnels they ran, what copy worked, what didn't work, all of that. Imagine all of that stuff, which we each collectively have in our own brains, was just in a database somewhere, right? Now imagine that database was accessible by an AI agent that you could just ask any question and it would reference that database before it gave you an answer, right? Theoretically, we have access to all that information, but how long would it take you to go through and relearn it all every time you needed to come up with an answer? It would take a really long time. Our brains are not capable of doing it. AI can do that. In fact, that's what we're building right now for our agency. And that's what Caleb has been building, especially, which is like, hey, AI, can you tell me what would work best with a client in this niche, this industry, these competitors, this type of offer, this price point, and what platforms we should go with, how we should script the ads? Like, start us off on a good foot here based on all of the stuff we've done in the past. And it can spit out an answer. That right there saves us how many hours, Caleb? I mean, like,
oh my gosh, it's like, yeah, it's you can't even count, honestly.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's multiple people doing a ton of different things. Oh, and also imagine you have a new hire that started last week and they don't have any of the context that your company has because they just started. Well, here's a way to get them up to speed in an insanely quick way because they can just ask questions to the brain of your company, essentially.
If someone asks me, hey, like, what's the most important thing I can do with AI right now? I think that for business owners, the most important thing that you can do is start to organize your knowledge, your standard operating procedures, your playbooks into an organized format that can feed this knowledge base.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have that, now you have this kind of dream that most CEOs have probably dreamed of for probably since, I don't know, like companies started, which is, I wish so badly that like every new person that got hired could just like know what I know. Like if I could just like live like next to them all day long, and I could just be there to answer questions for every single person all day long, they would just know what to do, right?
Right.
That is happening right now, and it's totally possible if your knowledge is organized. So the best advice: start taking your playbook, start taking your SOPs, put them in an organized format, and then feed that to the knowledge base of AI. And now instantly you're able to ask questions that like only you or someone with all of the years of your experience could answer, which out of the box, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, these tools wouldn't be able to answer because they don't have the context of your company. They haven't lived in that seat for the past 10 years. So that's the big thing. And then just to Dakota's point of like what we've been building in Slack, the tool is called Run Bear, run and then bear like the animal. And basically what it does is it takes the OpenAI Assistance API and it plugs that directly into Slack using that knowledge base. So we can create a Slack channel and say, hey, this bot's going to be attached to that Slack channel, which Slack is the tool that we use to communicate internally at our company, right? And so it's right there for all the employees. They don't have to go outside of anything. They can just live right there in Slack. And they ask any question, right? Like Dakota's example of the new hire is perfect. Someone gets started, they get a client question or an issue comes up and they're like, oh my gosh, I have no clue what to do in this scenario. This hasn't happened to me before. They can pop into that Slack channel and say, hey, this thing just happened. Based on the knowledge sources that you have, AI, can you help me craft a solution for this? And the AI goes through the past 10 years of knowledge that it has in its database. And it says, yeah, we've seen that 4 times before. Here's how we handled it. This was the result of that. And now that new hire is like, how much more valuable is that new hire to the situation now than them saying, hey, CEO, what do I do here? And then the CEO having to sit down and explain it for 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think people will be like, okay, well, why don't you just go to chatgpt.com and type this question in? And it's like, it's the difference between like general universal knowledge and niche down specific knowledge that only you know, right? Like your company is only valuable because of the way that you've built it and the way you do things, right? And if you don't believe that, then what are you doing, right? If you're just using general knowledge. And so that's kind of the piece that I think is really interesting here is it's like you can teach AI your way and have it draw on your way. And that's what we're really trying to do right now is like, hey, I know generally speaking, if you ask ChatGPT this question, here's the answer you get. But if you ask it this question with the context we have, you get this very specific output that is incredibly useful, right?
Exactly. So super cool. Saves a ton of time, and it's I think the most powerful way that business owners can just immediately tap into AI right now. All that you need is an organized list of your knowledge, right? And so start working on the SOPs or hire an assistant to work on the SOPs for you. Like that's a really useful thing that you can do. So
100%.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool also just to list off a couple tools that we all like to use, just to add value to the audience. Cause I think when we say AI, it's like, okay, where do I even start? So I don't know, Caleb, you want to start on tools that you've been pretty happy with
you
recently?
should talk about the really good image one that you've.
Oh yeah, for sure. So just to reiterate what we were just talking about, Run Bear is the name of that tool that just ties the knowledge base into Slack, if that's something that you're interested in. In terms of the image one, this is honestly, Dakota found this one. It's been my favorite one, I think, that we've found ever, honestly. It's called Ideogram, and I messed with it all morning today. And it's the first AI tool that can create images with accurate text. And if you've ever played with AI imaging before, you know that that's been the big thing that it can't do. Like it'll make a beautiful face, and then it's like just made up characters that don't make any sense, right? In terms of the text. So this is huge for advertising, because now you can say, hey, give me a picture of a woman with a shocked expression, and then you tell it what to say at the top and at the bottom, and it spits out a new creative with accurate text.
And good text too, like good looking fonts. Like, yeah, you can do a lot with it.
Yeah. And so that's a perfect example of what we talked about before with this whole like, okay, well, our graphic designer is going obsolete. No, but if you're a graphic designer that knows how to use Ideogram, you know what I mean? Like now how much more effective are you, and how much more can you produce for your
Yep.
clients or the company that you work for, right? So yeah, that's another really big one. Those have been two of my favorites. I don't know about you guys. So
Yeah, I'm still sort of a ChatGPT stan. I go back to that more than anything else. A lot of my friends in like the online marketing world are like, "What about Claude? Claude writes better copy," and maybe sometimes it does. But ChatGPT has context built into it, and so like it knows everything I've talked to it about. I let it save those histories. So when I go in and I say, "Hey, I have this client saying this and this and this. What's a good response?" sort of thing. It can pull from its database without me even having to refeed something, which is really helpful when dealing with like just a quick query, right, where you don't want to think through the prompt. So I do still use ChatGPT. It's like my daily driver in terms of like AI software. But another one that I'm like probably opening on a semi-regular basis that is more fun and I think has use cases that are both just for like casual fun, but also could be really useful for video creation, things like that, is Suno, Suno. And this is like a music creation app.
Now we're getting back to the doodle jump.
that's so fun.
Exactly, dude. This is like this is the doodle jump or like the iPhone tipping the beer over into your mouth game. That's what Suno is. But dude, you can do crazy stuff with Suno. You can create music genres even that you've never even thought of before. But one thing about Suno that people sleep on, again, the implications for artists, I understand. Not that fun if you're a person who creates instrumental music, as an example, but you can make instrumental songs in Suno that you own as soon as you generate, that you could use in the background of an ad video, for example. So no longer do you have to go out and find copyrighted or free use, like songs, like basically like the ones that you can just download from Storyblocks or whatever else. You can literally create one from scratch based on whatever you want it to sound like, and then download it and use it in your ad right there today. And like, if I'm a video editor, that saves me a million. Like, think about over the course of a year, how much time video editors look for that perfect song. It's like a very common thing. They just cannot find the song they want to go in the background. Okay, just make it. Right? Yep. Crazy tool.
Dude, but my favorite though is when you use it to like make like joke music for like our team. Like so like for instance, like there's that time that we had like this was for one of our clients, actually, not even for us, but like a client had a new sale come in and we were all hyped about it. And it was like a paid in full sale. And Dakota goes into Suno and makes like a whole song about like how that sale was so awesome. Right. And like puts that in there, and like now the sales team can hear it, like then the client hears it, and it just adds this like fun like joke. And now everyone's like, how did you just make a whole song about me closing this deal? And it's just like, it's fun, right? It's like you can use it to like boost culture and just
yeah, dude, I love doing stuff like that. Or I love going into like AI image software, creating an image and then like putting one of our team members' faces on it, and it's like, okay, that's dumb stuff, but that's fun. And there are use cases like that would take forever in the past, and now you can just do it real quick. What about you, Matt? What are you using?
Suno's so strong for like the music side of things, and
crazy.
It's not we've talked about Bob Dylan before. It's not going to make anything like Masters of War. I've not listened to an AI generated song and felt like a strong emotional response. So there is that element. But if I've got an ad and I know that some Afrobeat shoegaze would slay over that ad, guess where I'm going? It's freaking Suno. So
did you say Afrobeat shoegaze? Shoegaze. Oh, okay, cool.
Help us understand what genre that is.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds awesome.
Shoegaze is like dream pop with like heavily distorted guitars. It originated in the 90s. It's like the term shoegaze comes from like the guitarist like looking at the effects pedal on their floor, which is by their feet. So they're gazing at their shoes to make sure they've got like
no way. That's cool.
The delay, reverb, they're changing all that all times, and it's got like this wall of sound approach to it.
That's pretty dope.
Anyway, I love shoegaze music, so that's why I know that. But Suno's great. I think within ChatGPT, it's really important to talk about the different models as well. So the one I use a lot at the moment is the O3 Mini, which is faster advanced reasoning.
That's the new one from last week, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then there's also the O3 Mini High, which is the coding one from last week. And, the previous ones, like O1 was pretty good at coding. But just like what O3 can do, O3 Mini High can do for coding is wild. Building a custom GPT in ChatGPT and like building essentially a knowledge base, that's really good for copy and generating ideas about a specific thing rather than taking like wider context kind of stuff, although you can do both. Couple other tools that I really like. Obviously, we've mentioned Fathom. We still use that every day, which is awesome. If you're doing social media stuff, Opus, that actually takes a clip of a video and then analyzes using AI and creates like reels essentially on content that it thinks will convert best as social media clips. So that's really good.
Going back to Fathom really quick, there's one thing I wanted to share that we are currently doing that I think is cool to feed that Slack brain that Caleb was talking about earlier. You can take something like Fathom and then integrate it with something like Notion, right? And Notion is a really good like place to save things. I mean, you could use Google Drive or spreadsheets or whatever, but what we're doing is pushing in all of our meetings into Notion in real time. Notion has a summarize tool, so we'll summarize the transcripts, we'll put the transcripts in there, and then basically from that Notion board, it feeds that data into the brain. So now anyone at any time in our Slack can be like, hey, what did we talk about on that last call with so-and-so? And it will summarize that content, right? Rather than having to go to 10 different places to find it. And what's even next level about that is if, and we're still ideating on all of the things we could do with this, but like if Fathom pushed that call in there, it can also answer questions on like, oh, do we have that task built out in a Notion board yet? Or do we need to still build that out? Right. And so there's like all of these little things together when it all starts talking to each other that make things more efficient too. And we're just on the precipice of it. I feel like in a year or so, we'll have to come back and do another pod on like how we actually got all this running. But yeah, Matthew, I think
we'll call that episode, is AI going to take my job in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
So just keep working down the fractions of time.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about what DeepSeek can do. And how that's going to be a long-term competitor to ChatGPT. That's very much a tip of the iceberg kind of moment.
Well, what DeepSeek did, and to set the record straight on that, and I know we're going a little long. We could nerd out on this all day, but DeepSeek isn't anything revolutionary except for they proved that with way less funding and essentially a bootstrap team, they could build something as good as ChatGPT. And what that tells us is essentially that there's going to be a lot of competition in this space, and all of these companies are going to be fighting to have the best, fastest, newest model continually, right? Since DeepSeek was released, ChatGPT has released 3 new models, as you were talking about, Matthew, and all of them are exponentially better than the last, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like the competition is a good thing.
And DeepSeek's open source, right?
And it's open source.
So that's the crazy thing is like now it's like, okay, so anybody else can pull from that, and now they're not starting from scratch, they're starting from an amazing, beautiful place. And so it's crazy. And then you think about like, okay, now as the AI gets better, can it pull from open source and just like make itself better, right? It's gonna be insane.
Well, and what I think is cool, like last thing, what I think is cool about this though, Caleb, is like as we're building out the brain, for example, which is how our company is going to uniquely use AI internally. What's really cool about this competition is that if DeepSeek comes out with a better API tomorrow than ChatGPT has today, we just go in and change our API key to DeepSeek, and we now have an upgraded version of our brain, right? And so I think there was this moment where ChatGPT was running away with the competition, and people were really afraid of all of these like software companies that they'd built on the back of AI, or all of these like, they called them like wrappers, right? ChatGPT wrappers. They're like these software companies that do this thing with AI, but really when you peel away the outside, it's just ChatGPT, right? People were afraid that those companies were going to essentially just be like boom or bust. Like, okay, great. Now ChatGPT can just do that. Your company is obsolete. ChatGPT is cheaper, right? I think of like Jasper as an example. It's like that was the first thing. And then it's like, okay, well now I can use ChatGPT for basically everything Jasper did, and for a lot less. But what this open source sort of like mentality for AI does is it actually creates a need for these wrapper companies, because now they can just plug into whichever API is the best at the time and essentially upgrade their entire stack. You know what I mean? Which is cool.
It is cool.
So there's going to be a lot more competition is essentially all I mean to say there. So like, don't get set on whatever tool you're using now because there's going to be a lot more. And that's the other thing. It's not when people ask like, hey, what should I be doing? You should be tinkering. There's no other way to say it. You should be tinkering with new stuff as much as you possibly can until you find tools that make your life more efficient and make you better at what you're doing, basically.
Thanks guys for listening in and tuning into the podcast. We're bringing it back. We put it back on our calendars. We're doing it regularly, so you'll see more content coming from us soon. Thanks again for being a listener. We love you guys.